Hi guys, welcome back to Simonin Show. We know that Indonesia has a rich and diverse culture from Fahombo in North Sumatra to Rambu Solo in South Sulawesi. And of course, there are so many more local traditions within the country. And today, our special guest is a Portuguese content creator who recently visited Indonesia to explore some of these local traditions. So without further ado, please welcome Daniel Pinto. Thank you so much for taking the time to have this interview with us today. All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and you recently traveled to Indonesia, right?
I did.
And
One of my few times.
Which parts of Indonesia have you visited so far?
So this time I was in Sulawesi and West Papua. But before that, I've been in the island where Kupang is. I'm not sure the name. I've been to Bali. I've been to Java. I've been to the capital. I've been to Indonesian Borneo. I've been to quite a lot actually.
So that's impressive. That's a lot of places in Indonesia. Even some of those places I've never even visited as an Indonesian. So what inspired you to visit Indonesia, and especially visiting some of the rural areas in Indonesia?
I just love the fact that it's such a big country with so much to offer, and yeah, that's why I keep going back, because it's got thousands of islands. Everywhere's different, and yeah, if you follow my content, I always try and look for unique stuff, off the beaten path stuff, and because Indonesia has so many places and so many islands, it's an amazing country to do that in. Very easy to explore.
Yep, and you mentioned you visited Sulawesi as well as West Papua, right? And
on my most recent trip, yeah.
Yeah, and what are some of the traditions and rituals that you witnessed while you were there?
So I went to Sulawesi. I went to Tana Toraja. I was there about 2 months before Ma Nene, so it's when they prepare for the festival, and it was incredible. I was invited to a local's home, and I saw his mother, who passed away 2 years ago, and he spoke about what happens in Ma Nene and spoke about the funeral that's going to happen in about a year's time. It's all saving up. I was in the villages, and I bumped into an actual funeral that was happening, and we followed along with them, and that was amazing. We saw how the whole process happens, that they get put into a cave. Yeah, I find it fascinating. The Toraja culture is one that I've wanted to go to for a long time, and yeah, super blessed and grateful I got to go recently.
Yep, it is a very unique ritual indeed. And how did that ritual impact your perspective on the Indonesian culture and traditions?
Yeah, it was just amazing. It's very unique because it just shows how you can look at death in a positive way, whereas where I'm from, death is usually a very sad thing and negative. And I like the beauty of it, just how they turn something negative into positive. And that's a beautiful part of their culture, an Indonesian culture that I really liked.
Yep. And what about West Papua? You mentioned West Papua. What did you get to do in West Papua?
So West Papua, I didn't get to see much. I went to, so I was gonna venture into the highlands and go see some of the tribes, but I didn't have much time because I went to Papua New Guinea. So in West Papua, I was just in Raja Ampat, which is some of the most beautiful islands in the world I've ever seen. Some of the most incredible diving. Yeah, I'd say one of the most beautiful places on earth. It's insane.
That's amazing.
And I've been to a lot of islands.
Yeah, it is. And what are some of the most unforgettable moments that you experienced while you were traveling across
So I'd stick to my recent trip. I think the funeral I'll never forget that. Just the whole process from meeting them on the road to having dinner with them at the end. And diving on Cree Island in Raja Ampat was incredible. I saw animals that are only found there. Animals that are super rare to find in general, like the wobbegong shark. The sunset, I don't think I've ever seen such a beautiful sunset as I have in Indonesia. Those are the three that come to mind.
Yep. Yeah, and Indonesia is known for having lots of hidden gems. So can you share to us some of the, some of the places that you visited, the lesser known destinations for tourists? So how did you discover those places, and how did those places stood out to you?
The way I usually discover these places is so because I am in this like niche community of people that like to go to like hidden gems and off the beaten path places. So it's usually word of mouth. I'll usually ask friends that have been there. I've gotten quite good at research, so give me an hour online and I can find some really cool places. And then getting there just like anywhere else. So yeah, a lot of research, and because you need it, considering how many places Indonesia has. What was that? What was the other part of the second part of the question?
How did those places stood out to you?
Mind blown. You look at a picture and you don't realize how incredible it is until you get there. Raja Ampat, for example, I thought it was going to be just the usual, like a normal island, just like Bali, for example. But when you get there, it was insane. Some of the most beautiful views and animals and sunsets. It was out of this world.
Was it difficult getting to those places? And while you were there, was it difficult communicating with, the people out there?
No, it's the one thing I like about Indonesia is relatively easy. Even if you're somewhere remote, they still cater. So there's always a boat or a bus, and then what I've found is there's always someone who speaks English, which is very helpful. So even in the middle of nowhere, even though Raja Ampat's remote, someone speaks English and someone can help. So yeah, it definitely wasn't hard. That's one thing I like about Indonesia. It's very easy to get around.
Did you perhaps learn some of the Indonesian languages?
Like in Bahasa or some of the smaller languages? Because I've realized, like just in Raja Ampat alone, they have like 4 or 5 languages.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, we have lots of local, the languages, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately I didn't, because I travel so much and I'm always in places with new languages. It's hard.
Yeah.
It is hard to pick up, especially small local languages. So off the top of my head, I can't remember any words.
Yeah, it's fine. So you mentioned that it was pretty easy traveling and in communicating with the people, but as a content creator, what was the challenge throughout your journey in Indonesia?
The challenge is usually the same. It's usually trying to capture what I experience and show it, because it's not as easy as just filming what you see. You have to capture it in a way that you see it, and that's the hard part of a creator, because it's like putting your vision on paper. But I think I do it well enough. People enjoy it, and yeah, it just comes down to your creativity. It's putting your creativity on paper.
Yeah, and you have over 200,000 followers on Instagram, and from your content, right? What are some of the Indonesian culture or landscape do you think that resonates the most with your followers, with the global audience?
So it's definitely I'd say the more unique stuff. So I think what resonates with my followers is that I try and find strange foods. Not that I found anything too strange in Indonesia in terms of food, but it would be just places that most other creators haven't been to. So I always try and push that. I try and go to beaches you haven't heard of. I try and go to towns you haven't heard of, visit tribes you haven't heard of. I think that's one reason why people like following me, is because I do try and show you something different than the usual tourist who goes to Bali and shows you Kangoo. I try and be different. I think people enjoy that.
Yeah, and speaking of food, did you try some of the Indonesian food? Did you like any of the dishes?
I've tried loads, and Nasi Goreng is probably one of my favorite dishes in the world. And
really,
I've had
in the
a lot
world?
of food, but yeah, Nasi Goreng is definitely a top 10 dish for me worldwide.
Spicy or non-spicy?
Spicy, and I love a lot of the ketchup manis. I put that all over. I love the black sauce.
Okay, and you have traveled to other Southeast Asian countries, right? And you also tried some of their food. We have some similarities and also differences. And what, in what form do you see the differences in the nature of the dishes?
Yeah, there's I feel like all Southeast Asian countries have some similarities. The differences, I mean, the main difference that always comes to mind that you don't find nowhere else, and is my favorite part, is the ketchup manis. I will put that on everything. I'll put that on any dish I have, and you don't find that in other countries. So I would say, yeah, I know it's not like a big difference. It's just sauce, but it's one of my favorite things. And every time I go to Indonesia, I always bring like a bunch back home.
So you brought some back to Portugal?
I've got maybe half a liter downstairs somewhere.
Okay.
I love ketchup manis. I'm a big fan.
Okay, and how has your visit to Indonesia influenced the way you see the world and also approach the travel content creation and the storytelling that you do?
It's definitely slowed me down. I used to be quite a fast traveler. I would go somewhere for a few days and move on. But Indonesia being so broad and having so much to see, and it's made me spend more time in one place. It's definitely helped me slow down as a traveler. So I do notice I stay longer in each place, and I do think that's because of places like Indonesia, where you have to stay longer to really get a sense of its beauty. Yep. So yeah, it's really, chilled me out, which is good.
And what advice would you give to travelers that come from outside of Indonesia? What are some of the places that you think they should explore?
I would say Indonesian Borneo. I haven't seen as much as I want to, and I think it's got a lot of raw nature and untouched places. I'd say Borneo. Raja Ampat, like I said, is one of the most beautiful places on earth. I found the Tana Toraja culture incredible. 100% Tana Toraja, and I think Sulawesi in general. I think the islands and the Togian Sea, incredible diving. And then a place that I know a lot of that I haven't been to yet that I'm really dying to go to is Sumatra. So I would say, I think that's about 5 places. I'd say those. Incredible.
And what are some of the advice in terms of things to prepare and things to do while you were in Indonesia?
Like I said, Indonesia's pretty well set up for tourists. I don't think you really need much. Everything you need, you can just kind of arrange when you get there. There's not much you need to do before. I know you got an online visa now, which saves time and queues. But apart from that, it's very well set up. The transport, you don't have to book too far behind time. Hotels, you can just show up and book a hotel on the day. You guys have made it very easy. So I don't think people need to worry too much when they come to Indonesia.
And what's the must-do activity while you're here?
For me now, after all the places I've been to, I would say it's diving in Raja Ampat. I feel like that's like a lifetime goal you should set yourself, is go diving in Raja Ampat. It's incredible.
Okay, so Daniel, last question. After traveling to lots of places around the world, what can we expect from you in the near future? What are some of the most interesting places that you'll visit in the near future?
So I don't actually plan too far ahead, but I am hopefully going to be going to Latin America in the next few weeks. It's my first time in the continent, so I'm going to go spend some time with some tribes in the Amazon, and then I might be heading back to India soon, and then from there maybe Indonesia again. Who knows? I'm very go with the flow now.
Yeah, and if you get to visit Indonesia again, which parts will you visit most?
Yeah, it would be Sumatra for sure.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Daniel, for taking the time. It was very inspiring. It was amazing talking to you. And when you get to Indonesia, make sure to come by to our studio later.
I will do. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Right. See you. Right, so that wraps up our interview with the Portuguese content creator Daniel Pinto. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned in SEA Morning Show.